Welcome to The Explainer. Right, let's just jump straight into it. Because today we are doing a serious reality check. I want you to stop and think for a second about how you actually define your own wealth. Seriously, if I asked you right now to place yourself on the wealth ladder, you'd probably have an answer ready before I even finished the sentence, right? But what if I told you that your answer, and the entire way you arrived at it, is probably completely upside down?
So, are you lower, middle, or upper class? Most people answer this question based entirely on a feeling. You look at your paycheck, maybe the neighborhood you live in, the car you're driving, you think about whether you're ordering takeout or cooking at home, and let's be honest, you probably compare yourself to whatever your friends are posting on Instagram. But here is the massive problem with that. Wealth class has absolutely nothing to do with any of those things. Those feelings, they're completely misleading. At the end of the day, it all comes down to one single, undeniable number.
Okay, picture this. You've got a surgeon making a massive $350,000 a year. Sounds amazing, right? But they are carrying $400,000 in debt. Now put them right next to a teacher who earns $55,000 a year, but they own their house free and clear, and they have $80,000 sitting in retirement accounts. So, who is wealthier? Obviously, the surgeon feels rich, and the teacher might not feel rich at all. But the math absolutely does not care about feelings. The teacher is mathematically wealthier. You see, your income is just a flow. It comes in, it goes out. True wealth is a stock. It's the actual pile of resources that stays with you and builds over time.
So the absolute crucial point here is understanding exactly how we measure that stock. It's called your net worth. And it's incredibly simple. It is the raw, unedited subtraction of everything you owe from everything you own. This is literally the only mathematical metric that determines your true placement on the wealth ladder. It's not your salary. It's not your lifestyle. It is just this one simple equation.
Let's bring this down to earth with a real-world example. Meet Tyler. Tyler's 34, works as a marketing manager, and earns a really solid $85,000 a year. He rents a nice place, drives a decent car, goes out on the weekends, pays for, 3 streaming services he probably rarely watches, and generally feels like he's doing pretty fine in life. He feels solidly middle class. But let's strip away all those feelings and look at his actual balance sheet. On the asset side, he's got $37,000 between his car, a 401k, and his savings account. Not bad. But on the debt side, well, he owes $44,000 between his car loan and his student loans.
So when we actually do the math, we get a pretty brutal reality check. Boom. Tyler's actual net worth is negative $7,000. He earns a great living, sure, but his net worth is below zero. If he literally sold everything he owned tomorrow, he would still owe money. This perfectly illustrates how gradual lifestyle creep, a car payment here, a subscription there, how it can create this total illusion of financial progress while completely masking a massive problem on the balance sheet.
Tyler actually sits right in the bottom 25% of American households, and this group includes anyone with a net worth below roughly $23,000. Now, you might be thinking this bracket is entirely made up of minimum wage workers, right? Nope, it's really not. This bracket is packed with people exactly like Tyler, high earners pulling in 60, 80, or even 100 grand a year who simply haven't built any actual assets. The money comes in and the money goes straight back out to service debts and fund their lifestyle. They're just totally caught in the trap of zero asset building.
Okay, so let's climb the ladder a bit to the lower middle class, which is basically anywhere from $23,000 up to $179,000. To get here, honestly, Tyler just needs to aggressively pay down some of his debt. But we really need to break down how wealth is actually composed in this specific bracket, because it's almost entirely locked up in home equity. People here aren't necessarily Wall Street geniuses. They just bought a house and they pay their mortgage every month. But the problem with that, you can't buy groceries with home equity. Because their actual liquid cash is so incredibly low, their financial resilience is paper thin. Literally, one medical emergency or a sudden job loss can destabilize their entire life.
And you know what? That fragility extends right into the exact middle of the pack. The median household net worth in America sits at $193,000. Half have more, half have less. Now, on the surface, they look pretty secure. But if you strip away that house and look only at the liquid cash they can actually access tomorrow if they needed to, it drops to just $30,000 to $40,000. That is the entire financial cushion for half of America. The median household definitely isn't broke, but man, they certainly aren't totally secure either.
Now, things start to fundamentally shift when we enter the upper middle class, going all the way up to $610,000. Right around that $500,000 mark, you see a really critical rebalancing happen.
Wealth is no longer just accidentally accumulated by paying a mortgage, it becomes highly intentional. We start seeing a 50-50 split between the primary home and actual proper investments. And this is vital because investments compound. A house just sits there, but investments generate returns, and then those returns generate more returns. This bracket, this is the launch pad. As that compound growth really starts doing the heavy lifting, we reach the upper class, the top 25%, and here is where we hit the inversion point. Investments completely overtake the primary residence. 75% of net worth in this bracket is now in financial assets. Your house is no longer your biggest asset, your portfolio is. And here's a secret. It doesn't take a massive six-figure salary to get here. Just consistently investing $1,000 a month at average market returns over 2 decades can plant a household firmly in this bracket. It's really about what you keep, not just what you earn.
And that brings us to the top 10%, which kicks off at $1.72 million. At this level, wealth works in a completely different way. Think about this. A portfolio of $1.72 million, earning a very, very modest 4% annually, generates $69,000 a year in completely passive income. That is more than the entire median household income in the United States, generated without even touching the principal. In this bracket, the money is literally working harder than the person.
But hold on a second. We really need to address a major blind spot in literally everything we've covered so far. All those brackets we just went through, the median of $193K, the top 10%, they lump all American households together into one giant bucket. But measuring a 25-year-old fresh out of college against a 65-year-old who's about to retire, that makes absolutely no mathematical sense.
When we break net worth down by age, the sheer reality of compounding time is revealed. Just look at the numbers. The median for someone under 35 is just $39,000, but for folks aged 45 to 54, it jumps to $247,000. Where you actually stand on the wealth ladder depends so heavily on how much compounding time you have left on the clock.
Let's bring this right back to Tyler, our 34-year-old marketing manager with that negative $7,000 net worth. Remember before we saw he was in the bottom 25% overall? Well, when we age adjust his numbers, it's actually much worse. The median for his specific age group is $39,000. Tyler is sitting way down at the 10th percentile for his age bracket. 90% of households his exact same age have a higher net worth than he does. Ouch. That is the real raw power of age-adjusted benchmarks.
So, what does Tyler do now? Let's walk through 3 completely different 20-year paths he could take starting from this exact moment. Scenario 1 is what we'll call coasting. Tyler changes absolutely nothing. He keeps paying his minimums, saves a tiny little bit, and spends the rest on upgrading his car and adding even more subscriptions. Fast forward to age 54, he's slowly paid off his loans and finally hits a net worth of $120,000. Now that might sound okay until you realize the median for a 55-year-old is over $365,000. He spent 20 stagnant years earning really good money with almost nothing to show for it.
Okay, let's look at scenario 2. This is where Tyler gets intentional. He takes a hard look at his discretionary spending and cuts it to free up $700 a month. He aggressively attacks that debt and then redirects all that momentum right into investments. Fast forward to 38, he buys a modest house to start building equity. By age 54, simply through disciplined, consistent, boring choices, his net worth hits $500,000. He is now comfortably in the upper middle class bracket, sitting right at the 75th percentile for his age. Same income, totally different choices.
But what if Tyler gets completely aggressive? In scenario 3, he hustles and increases his income to $110,000, but, and this is key, he completely freezes his lifestyle budget. No upgrades. He's now investing a massive $1,500 a month. At 37, he buys a duplex, lives in one half, and rents out the other. By age 54, this insane combination of higher income, ruthlessly low expenses, and real estate equity rockets his net worth to $1 million. He has aggressively pushed his way straight into the top 25% of all households.
Look at that. These are 3 wildly different outcomes, all stemming from the exact same starting point for the exact same person, from $120,000 to a cool $1 million. There were no lotteries won here, no rich uncles passing away, just the incredible exponential compounding effect of intentional, mathematical decisions made consistently over 2 decades.
And that brings us to the absolute core takeaway of this entire explainer. Hoping is not a wealth strategy. Real financial transformation doesn't happen by guessing or by just assuming that your decent paycheck means you're doing fine. It happens by fundamentally understanding the math it takes to get where you want to be and then making the active, incredibly intentional choices to close that gap. The wealth ladder is not fixed. People move up it every single day. So I'm going to leave you with this final question. Are you ready to actually run your numbers? The single most powerful financial advantage you can ever have isn't a high income. It's knowing exactly where your true net worth stands right now, today. Don't rely on feelings. Don't rely on lifestyle illusions. Sit down and do the raw subtraction tonight. Find out exactly where you really are. Because 20 years from now, you are going to end up at a destination. The only question is, will it be one you actively chose or just one you settled for?